honestly, at this point, I think that craziness actually a lot of the time has something to do with intelligence, some kind of link, some kind of sign of intelligence. Because a lot of the time, the most intelligent people are a little bit crazy. Einstein, I don't know, but there's a huge list. Einstein, Mike Tyson, and so on and so forth. Like a lot of the people who are the most intelligent people take risks, for example, that most people wouldn't take, or do certain things that just most people would never do, that most people would think is crazy. But that's part of the brilliance. For example, Mike Tyson offering a zookeeper a load of money to be able to fight, what was it, a gorilla or something? Like, isn't that an example? That's fucking crazy, but he was that. He was crazy. And that was part of his genius, part of his intelligence. You see, most people see craziness as... No, most crazy things are... Most people who call others crazy is the people that... those crazy people are usually the types that do things that are different to everyone else. So they get called crazy. But a lot of the time, doing things that not everyone does are the intelligent things to do. Not it can get taken to too far. But I mean, some examples. Training, for example, say like Mike Tyson, training like a fucking madman. That made him so good. He trained like he was literally insane. Did he used methods where he would... there was something like showering in a dark room whilst listening to a certain speech every morning, or something like just doing things that most people don't do. And training just brutally to the extent where it's like insane. That made him so fucking good. And most of the most successful people do work like they're insane. They work just so hard that they're like, it's almost like they're insane. And that's what gets them to the top. But there's craziness in all the most successful people. There's a bit of craziness in all of them. And that's why I think if anyone calls you crazy, there's nothing bad about that. Because anyone who's on the right path, a lot of the time they do get called crazy. And sometimes, in fact a lot of the time, getting the most success comes out of doing what other people aren't doing. So if you try fit in with a crowd and aren't doing things that are different, then how can you expect to be getting any more success than everyone else if you're just doing what everyone else is doing. Just because everyone's doing something, it doesn't mean it's the right thing to do. And throughout history as well, it doesn't mean it's even morally right. You know, for example, the way black people used to be treated, right? Well, they were treated fucking awfully by the majority of people. Just because everyone was treating them like that didn't mean it was morally right to be treating those people like that, was it? You know? It was almost like the person who stepped out and said, no, you guys are fucking racist. They were the ones that were called fucking crazy. The ones who had morals. But you know why those kind of people were called crazy? Is because they weren't part of that pack. They weren't standing for it. They were a minority. Anyone who's a minority is usually seen as crazy, even if they're right. And it goes, you know, there's so many cases of this within history. You know, the witch hunts. Anyone who said, this witch hunt shit, this witch stuff is bullshit, anyone who would have said that back in the day would have been called fucking nuts to be saying the truth, to have morals. Anyone in Nazi Germany to have said, oh, the dictator's, you know, a bad person, would probably be called crazy. Because it was against the majority. And this is why the majority, just because everyone else thinks it, it doesn't mean it's right. It doesn't mean it's morally right or anything. And just because there's certain things within science that everyone thinks they know, you know, that everyone thinks is right, doesn't mean it's right. If it hasn't been fully proven and it's just a theory or something, it doesn't mean it's... We might all be going by it, but it might eventually be debunked, and it actually might be false later on, we might find out. And I'll be honest with you, usually the majority is wrong. But it sure takes balls to say things that not everyone to step outside of that kind of pack, to step outside of the majority and be a minority and say things that might seem quite outlandish, you know, quite out there. But sometimes those things need to be said. And anything that's that you say that is very different from everyone else's opinions usually gets called controversial or something like that. But there has to be those kind of things said, otherwise the world wouldn't progress. No, the society wouldn't progress. wouldn't move forward in a good way if people didn't say some of these things that they say, that might seem controversial, that might seem quite outlandish and out there, that might get a lot of backlash.